Hi there guys, welcome to another video. Issue number 23. So I know that issue number 22 only went up yesterday, so I had a few delays, but luckily we are on time today, so that's great. I'm going to do today's review a little differently. So what I generally do is I go through this magazine, I'll read the first kind of paragraph or the kind of main text for each section and then move on. So what I'm going to do is today, as a test, I will do that. I'll do the whole thing as usual, and then at the end I will come back and I'll go through the whole thing in depth. So for the first sort of 15 minutes of this video it will be just as normal, and then we'll go back and we'll have a real deep dive on this. So if you like the usual stuff, hang about for the first half. If you want more depth, hang about for the second half as well. So that's cool. So what have we got today? Conquest number 23, Battlefield accessories, learn about Chaos Demons, add new models to your missions. And on the cover we've got these dudes. These are the little nurglings. You get them on some of the miniatures, little tiny things. So miniatures wise this week we have got some what they call Battlefield accessories. So we've got basically 3 barrels. We've got this, which is a, I think that's to stop tanks. We've got this, which will make up a single barrier. We've got this, it will be like a metal platform. We've got this, which I believe, I'm not sure what that is. We'll find out in a minute. Then we've got a couple of ammo crates. So that's what we get. And I believe that this stuff can be used for normal terrain. And I think that some of them can be used for kind of objectives. So a weapons box or weapons cache can be used as an objective, you know, secure the weapon cache. So that's that. Oh, look. That's already coming off. Right, cool. Let's get into the magazine first. So something else new that I'm going to start doing is there's kind of a editor's notes that's in the magazine every week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through this as well. So get ready to wage war with Battlefield accessories in this issue. You'll first call on 2 playmat terrain models. Battlefield accessories all have interesting effects in your games. Ammunition crates allow you to re-roll some missed shots. I did not know that in your games. Tank traps stop vehicle movement. And your Prometheum drums may explode. So those are like the barrels. You'll use your Battlefield accessories in 2 exciting new missions. The Ultramarines must stop a demonic ritual and strike deep into Death Guard territory. Happy hobbying. From Ian. So that's cool. And I have already had a brief look through this, and I can tell you that the missions in this week are really cool and really interesting. Different to what I've had before. So, in this issue, chapter organisation, learn about the organisation of a Space Marine chapter. Demons of Chaos, add to 40k Factions 2. Hierarchy of the Imperium, add to 40k Factions 1.1. Learn about Nurglings. These little bastards on here. ACHERON AFLAME. On War-Torn Armageddon, Blood Angels and Orcs clash. Then we get how to put together our Battlefield accessories. Then we've got a little paint guide for them. And then we've got 2 rules missions this week. Stop the ritual. The Death Guard seek to summon demons from the warp. And behind enemy lines, the Ultramarines strike deep into Death Guard territory. So lots of cool stuff today. Very, very cool. Okay, so chapters 1.3, chapter organisation. The vast majority of Space Marine chapters include the Ultramarines, follow the chapter organisation laid down in the Codex Astartes. Space Marines follow the teaching of the Emperor and the Primarchs, the warriors whose gene seed was used to create them. There are many deadly threats that surround the Imperium. Demons, heretics and aliens attack from all sides, and the Space Marines find themselves as tested never before. The Imperium relies on the rapid strike forces of the Space Marines to fill gaps in their defences and save them from certain destruction. Okay. So that's that. Then we get chapter organisation diagram. This shows the strategic organisation of a Codex compliant Space Marines chapter. The majority of the Space Marine chapters, particularly Ultramarines and their successors, stick rigidly to this organisation and rarely stray too far from the instructions laid down in the Codex Astartes. So that's got all that there. Right, Demons of Chaos. There are few things more terrifying than Demons of Chaos. From the depths of the warp, they come surging forth into reality to bring ruin and terror into real space. The Demon Legions are the armies of the Dark Gods, and they will only cease their attacks when reality has been ripped apart. So that goes in your 40k Factions Part 2. I think this is the first part of it. But that's cool. The Demon Legions pour out of the warp to rain murderous terror down on unsuspecting mortals. Lovely. Okay, then 40k Factions 1.1, Hierarchy of the Imperium. The Imperium is vast, and communication across the distances of planets can be ineffective or even impossible. On Terra, vast imperial organisations struggle to maintain the sense of order. So what we've got here is a little bit about, again, like the hierarchy of the Imperium. So we've got Adeptus Custodes, the Inquisition, Adeptus Administratum, Adeptus Terra, Adeptus Ministorum, Imperial Fleet, and Questor Imperials. Okay, next we've got Demons of Nurgle, the Nurglings. Nurglings are the most common of Nurgle's demons. Each individual Nurgling may be weak, but they gather in vast swarms, giggling as they nip at their victims. Many mighty heroes have met an embarrassing end beneath a squealing heap of Nurglings. Gross. So that's good. These guys look really cool, actually. I'd like a plushie doll of a Nurgling. That'd be awesome. Okay. Nurglings often assist Nurgle followers in battle, swarming over enemies. Strength in numbers, they might be mischievous and filled with mirth, but Nurglings can be surprisingly effective in battle. Giant masses of the little creatures swarm across the battlefield, finding their way into tank wrecks, disused pipes and shattered ruins. As the enemy comes close, the Nurglings emerge from their hidden places and wash over the enemy in a giant wave of nibbling infection. Panic screams are muffled beneath the press of hundreds of flabby little Nurglings. I actually think they're quite cute, to be honest. They shouldn't be so mean about these little dudes. Right, okay. ACHERON AFLAME, 40k Battles 11. On the war-torn planet of Armageddon, the hive city ACHERON lies behind Orc lines and has been the site of a vicious guerrilla campaign. During the Third War of Armageddon, Blood Angels scouts under Sergeant Archelos were tasked with protecting a precious ammo dump from the Orcs. Cool. So yeah, there's like a kind of diorama of that. Deep in ACHERON Hive, Sergeant Archelos and his men fend off an Orc ambush. By the blood of Sanguinus, forward, shouts Sergeant Archelos. Okay, how to build battlefield accessories. So again, we have got ammo crate number 1 and ammo crate number 2. Ammo supply dump this is. Bunch of barrels and tank traps. Okay, how to paint your battlefield accessories. So barrels are Mephiston red with a touch of Bugman's glow on the raised edges. Our ammo crates are Nurgle green. Sorry, our ammo crates are Death Guard green with a little bit of lead belcher. And a little bit of Abaddon black. Our platforms and our tank equipment are lead belcher with a bit of Nuln oil. So yeah, pretty straightforward, but cool. In fact, there's only a couple of paints involved with these, but they actually look really cool when they're done. Very nice. Okay, so our rules. What have we got? Unholy Ritual. The streets of Corvon II's capital are relatively quiet. A lull in the fighting, broken only by the occasional distant explosion or burst of gunfire. Among the ruins, a band of Death Guard are enacting a foul demonic ritual, intent on creating even more havoc during their invasion. Okay, the Death Guard stalk the streets of Corvon 2, and they are granted more powerful. They are granted more power by twisted chaos rituals. They may be unstoppable. Okay, so stop the ritual. So we've got Corvon 2 here, and we've got deployment zones in either corner. So our armies for today. Hang on a minute. So deployment zone in each corner. Place 5 objective markers. The Death Guard player places the first objective, then Space Marine player, and so on. Objectives can be set up anywhere on the map, more than 6 inches from the edge and 6 inches from another objective. They may not be placed in the deployment zones. So our armies are 5 Plague Marines, 12 Poxwalkers, Foul Blight Spawn, and the Biologous Putrefier versus 5 Intercessors, 1 Inceptor, 5 Reavers, and our Librarian. Deployment, as we said before. Victory conditions. At the end of their opponent's turn, players will collect any objective that were in base contact with their units. This unit cannot be falling back or engaged in close combat. Remove those objectives from the game. The player has collected the most objective markers at the end is the game's winner, and there's 5 battle rounds. So that's our first part. All right, that's our first mission. Then our second mission is called Enemy Territory. An Ultramarines force moves to Death Guard territory, intending to capture ground from the Nurgle worshipping foes. The grim followers of Nurgle are deadly, especially when surrounded by the disgusting infection that lingers in the areas they have corrupted. The Death Guard occupied area of the city is a mass of plague-infested vegetation and pools of noxious goo. The taint of chaos spreads quickly in the wake of the Plague Marines, and the Death Guard have done their best to ensure any land they leave behind is scarred and ruined beyond use. Okay, so in enemy territory, right, okay. This is really cool. Yeah, so this is a completely different setup from what we've done before. The Death Guard have corrupted an entire section of the city. The Space Marines must force their way into the area and secure valuable locations. The Death Guard must hold what they have and drive the Ultramarines back into their own territory. So the first half of our map is the Death Guard deployment zone. And then what we've got here is a very thin strip. Well, it's not even a thin strip. So basically Space Marines enter from the map edge. Place the first 2 objectives as shown. So there's one right in the centre and there's one right in the back of Death Guard lines. Death Guard player then deploys their entire force. The Space Marine player then places a 3rd objective. This objective must be in the Death Guard deployment zone and must be more than 6 inches away from any other objective. So that's cool. Entering play from the mat edge. For this mission, Space Marines do not deploy. Instead, the Space Marine player will move all of their units onto the mat during their first turn. Start this movement from the mat's edge. So basically, their deployment zone is just right on the edge of the map, and then they can just do their movement from there. Okay, so our armies are Lord Felthius and the Tainted Cohort, 12 Poxwalkers and 5 Plague Marines, and they're up against 5 Intercessors, 5 Aggressors, Lieutenant Calcius, 5 Reavers, 2 Hellblasters and 1 Inceptor. That is the strongest force I believe we've seen so far from the Space Marines. So deployment, we've already gone through. Victory conditions. The player who holds the most objectives at the end of the game is the winner. To hold an objective, you must have more than 3 models within 3 inches of the objective marker, then the enemy at the end of the game. This game lasts for 5 battle rounds. So, basically, the 5 Poxwalkers, so they're probably going to be lined up here, because as soon as the Space Marines come in, they're gonna want to get right in their face and start fighting straight away. Now, unless they can start fighting straight away, our Hellblasters and our Aggressors are just going to start picking them apart. So I can see from this, I think there's a stronger force for the Space Marines if they can get rid of those Poxwalkers quickly. But then again, Death Guard start with all the deployment zones. So It's an interesting ebb and flow, this one. I think it's a, yeah, I think it's a really, really good mission. Certainly a lot to think about. Okay, so finally, before we reset again and go through everything in more depth, your next conquests. Issue 24 and 25 will have a sprue in each one. Both those sprues together will make up a Redemptor Dreadnought. So, what I'll be doing is I've already ordered extra copies, or an extra copy of each one of these. So that's going to be our next competition. So our competition for issue number 19, which was Lord Felthius and the Tainted Cohort, the prerequisites for that was that the video had to get 100 views and you had to drop a comment and be subscribed. So that's all you had to do to be in with a chance with it. And I announced the winner for that one on the last episode. Now, I've picked up a lot of subscribers in the last month and I really, really appreciate it. You know, I can't stress enough how pleased I am with what's happened in the last month. I went from having about 200 subscribers to getting up to about 450, which is very, very small for YouTube, but really, really cool for me. I'm really happy. So what I'm doing is, these two issues are making up the next competition. So I've already ordered my extra copies of issue number 24 and 25. So the guidelines on that one is that each issue, if they get 1,500 views and it gets a comment from one of my subscribers, that's all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning these. So I will collect them both up, and if we get, in fact, what I'll do is, if I just call it 3,000 views between the two issues, that's what we have to hit. So even if we get 1,000 in one and 2,000 in the other, or 10 in one and 2,990 in the other one, as long as we get those, I'll definitely give it away and I'll post it worldwide. So the last one, the last competition, I gave to a guy called James in Texas. And I'll be doing that. So it doesn't matter where you live in the world. If you win, I'll get it posted out to you. So that's it. Right. So let's start again. In fact, let's not start again. Let's quickly, very quickly, make up this shit. Right, so let's have a look at this stuff then. So this is our first kind of tank defense piece. That's that. We've seen this sort of stuff before. Just some plain barrels. We've got 2 weapon caches. That's the first one. The second one, which are nice. And then we've got this other weapon cache. That's it. And then the last two, oh, we've got a little fuel can, which is cool. I'll probably stick that on top one of the barrels. We've got our first tank defense piece. Sorry, another tank. We've got another tank defense piece. And then we've got this platform. Not entirely sure what that's for. But there you go, so there's all those bits. Right. Let's get into a more in-depth look at the magazine. So basically all I'm going to do is what I usually do, except this time I'm going to read all of the text, except for the paint guide. Okay, so we'll start with chapter organisation. The vast majority of Space Marine chapters, including the Ultramarines, follow the chapter organisation laid down in the Codex Astartes. Space Marines follow the teachings of the Emperor and the Primarchs, the warriors whose gene seed was used to create them. There are many deadly threats that surround the Imperium. Demons, heretics and aliens attack from all sides, and the Space Marines find themselves tested as never before. The Imperium relies on the rapid strike forces of the Space Marines to fill gaps in their defences and save them from certain destruction. Each chapter is led by a chapter master, and most chapters are assembled according to the Codex Astartes, a document written by Reboot Guilliman many thousands of years ago. The Codex Astartes is a detailed instruction manual for a Space Marine chapter. Its pages explain how a chapter should be organised, function and wage war. The Codex helps to ensure that Space Marines are the most effective military force in the galaxy. Codex organisation allows for a very flexible command structure, and most chapters fight as several separate forces. It is rare for the whole chapter to be at war together, and it is only called for combat to the most dire threats. Chapters that follow the guidance of the Codex are split into 10 companies. Each of these companies is usually divided into 10 squads of 10 warriors that fulfill specialist battlefield roles. Space Marine chapters also have access to a wide range of armoured vehicles, strike craft, bikes, and a fleet to transport them to battle. Much of this equipment is not part of the company structure, but can be requested if needed. This is the way Space Marines can make sure they have the specialist troops and equipment they need to crush an enemy in battle. And the tagline for that page is, "A liberated mind is a haven for treachery." So the 10 companies mentioned there are the 10 companies mentioned in this chapter organisation. So at the top you've got the chapter command. You've got the Armoury, the Reclusium, the Apothecarian, and the Librarius. So you've got Veterans, which is the first company. Then you've got other battle companies, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. You've got reserve companies, which is 6th to 9th. And the 10th company is the Scouts. And these different colours make up, they're to indicate what company they're from. Okay, Demons of Chaos, 40k Factions 2. There are few things more terrifying than the Demons of Chaos. From the depths of the wolf they come surging forth into reality and bring ruin and terror into real space. The Demon Legions are part of the armies of the Dark Gods, and they will only cease their attacks when reality has been ripped apart. There are countless types of demon, each a nightmare vision created from the sins and vices of mortal creatures. Demons are aspects of the Dark Gods' giving consciousness. Each demon is created by one of the 4 Chaos Gods. To create a new demon, the god must sacrifice a portion of its power to bring its creation into existence. A more powerful demon will require a larger portion of the god's power. The gods of chaos may destroy any of his demonic creations at any time, absorbing their power once more. This ensures that even the most powerful of demons remain loyal to their god. The appearance and behaviour of a demon comes from the god that created it. For example, Khorne, the god of battle, creates aggressive creatures eager to slay and destroy. Nurgle, on the other hand, creates rotting horrors that are revolting to behold. And our tagline is, execute the traitor, purge the heretic, slay the alien. Demons can invade reality in many different ways. Untrained psychers are the most common way for demons to break into the reality, as their minds are easily found in the warp. Ships entering the Imperium are also vulnerable. If any of their defences fail, a horrifying fate awaits those on board. A few permanent gateways to the warp also exist, torn open by psychic activity or dark ritual. The Cicatrix Maledictum is the greatest of these, and it continues to widen, allowing more demonic creatures to pour through the veil that separates reality from the realm of chaos. In such areas, the powers of chaos are stronger. Star disruption, warp storms and other psychic events can draw demon legions out of their realm. When they do emerge, they bring war and corruption on an epic scale. If enough warp energy spills forth the most monstrous inhabitants of the warp, the mighty greater demons can emerge. At their command, demonic hordes destroy worlds and slaughter entire populations. To drive a demon back into the warp, the twisted energies that sustain and give them form must be destroyed or cut off. Physically slaying a demon in real space will banish it, but the demon will eventually be reformed in the warp as its energy comes back together. Given the chance, this demon will return from the warp when it has regained its form, with all kinds of horrible vengeance in mind. Demons of chaos are the greatest and oldest fears of mortals given form. Relentless and cruel, they are enemies of order and reason. Against these vast and deadly legions, victory seems impossible, and they still grow in number. Okay, that's pretty bleak. Okay, hierarchy of the Imperium. The Imperium is vast, and communication across the distances between planets can be ineffective or even impossible. On Terra, the vast Imperial organisations struggle to maintain any sense of order. Okay, Adeptus Custodes. The Adeptus Custodes, or Custodian Guard, are tasked with guarding the Imperial Palace and the body of the Emperor himself. They are 10,000 strong, each a genetically engineered superhuman that could easily beat even a Space Marine in combat. The Adeptus Custodes serve as the Emperor's personal guardians, answerable only to the master of mankind and their own leaders. On occasion they are seen on other worlds, but they are only deployed away from Terra when the need is great. Okay, the Inquisition. A highly secretive organisation, the Inquisition answers only to themselves and the Emperor. The sole mission of the Inquisition is to protect humanity. Inquisitors are given the powers to investigate any potential threat to mankind and to take whatever measures they consider appropriate to destroy the danger. The end justifies any means, and on occasion an Inquisitor will go so far as to order the destruction of an entire planet to protect the Imperium. Okay, Adeptus Administratum. The largest organisation in the Adeptus Terra, the Adeptus Administratum is itself divided into countless different branches, as is their task to manage the Imperium. Then it is they who tithe, administer, record and archive. The Adeptus Administratum employs billions of citizens across the Imperium, all undertaking dull day-to-day administrative work. Those who work in the Administratum are expected only to perform their tasks. Understanding is neither required nor welcome. Death is our final offering to the Emperor. Okay, Adeptus Terra. The Adeptus Terra is the central bureaucratic organisation of the Imperium. It is not strictly an agency itself, acting more as a link between the High Lords of Terra and the various other agencies. It is made up of many departments that receive orders from the High Lords. These orders are then passed down to different branches of the Imperium that enact their commands. Adeptus Ministorum. The Adeptus Ministorum, more commonly known as the Ecclesiarchy, spreads the imperial cult through the Imperium. The Ecclesiarchy is not part of the Adeptus Terra, but is a separate institution that hosts many subgroups of its own. The best known of these subgroups is the military wing, the Adeptus Sororitas. Its training orphanages, the Schola Progenium, and its missionaries, the Missionaris Galaxia, who often accompany imperial exploration fleets. Okay, next the fleet itself, the Imperial Fleet. All shipping within the Imperium falls under the command of the Imperial Fleet. The only exceptions to this rule are the ships under the command of the Adeptus Astartes and a few other Adeptus organisations. The larger part of the fleet is the Navy, transport ships and battleships that escort cargo across the galaxy and serve as the first line of defence against interstellar invasion. The Imperial Fleet is a vast galaxy-spanning force that carries the Emperor's war across the stars. And finally, the Questor Imperialis. Guided by a single noble pilot, the Imperial Knight is a giant armoured walker. Many of these proud and arrogant warriors can trace their bloodlines back to Terra itself. Over the millennia, each pilot household has sworn oaths to assist agencies of the Imperium. Imperial Knights are dedicated to the Golden Throne of Terra, and the Mechanicus Knights to the Adeptus Mechanicus of Mars. Knights that have forsaken their household through loss, punishment or exile will adopt a new heraldry and fight on as free blades. Okay, interesting stuff. Right, moving on to Nurglings. Nurglings are the most common of Nurgle demons. Each individual Nurgling may be weak, but they gather in vast swarms, giggling as they nip at their victims. Many mighty heroes have met an embarrassing end beneath the squealing heap of Nurglings. Tiny plague imps with needle-sharp fangs, Nurglings are demons. Each one a tiny image of Nurgle himself. They gather in large groups, clambering over their enemies in a tide of bites and scratches. As with all demons of Nurgle, they are rife with disease. Each tiny bite soon festers and blackens as infection takes hold. When the Death Guard march into war, they are often followed by large numbers of Nurglings who seem to appear from nowhere wherever they go. They are often found wriggling through the putrid innards of plague ships, having fun in cesspools that collect in the vessel's bows. On the battlefield they spill out of ammo crates, cling to the hulls of tanks, and even burrow through the innards of plague marines as they march to war. Some Nurglings are fond of following one particular Death Guard warrior, following their chosen master like a loyal pet and attempting to help them in any way they can. Many Death Guard find these mites a constant annoyance as they steal blight grenades, climb over power armour and mimic the shouts of their masters whilst waving their stubby little arms. Plague Marines put up with the annoying mites, however, as their presence is seen as a sign of Nurgle's favour. Nurglings are particularly common amongst the Vectoriums of the 4th Plague Company. and they seem to prefer joining warbands ruled by Death Guard sorcerers. Victoriums such as the Filth-Favoured, the Prophets of the Seven, and the Bilious Ones often enter battle surrounded by living carpets of Nurglings that protect the Death Guard from assault and overwhelm their foes. The infamous Death Guard sorcerer Dolthrop Goberagor is renowned throughout the ranks of the Death Guard for the sheer amount of Nurgling followers that accompany him. He is often carried into battle atop a chattering mountain of devoted Nurglings. Lovely. Okay, ACHERON, AFLAME. On the war-torn planet of Armageddon, the hive city ACHERON lies behind Orc lines and has been the site of a vicious guerrilla campaign. During the Third War of Armageddon, Blood Angel scouts under Sergeant Archelos were tasked with protecting the precious ammo dump from the Orcs. Orcs swarmed over walkways and barricades, their primal bellows nearly drowning out Squad Archelos Vox communications. The Blood Angel scouts held their ground, silenced bolt pistol shots dropping enemies left and right. Sergeant Archelos placed another bolter round between the eyes of an advancing Orc and called out to his men, "Drop back behind the next line of defence." The Blood Angel steadily fell back, clambering over another line of hastily assembled barrels, crates and other battlefield debris. As the last of the scouts jumped into cover, Archelos nodded to Brother Dionys, the squad's heavy gunner. Dionys heaved his heavy bolter and began pouring round after round into charging Orcs. Orcs exploded as bolter rounds found their mark. Tagline on this page is, "In war, mankind's noblest attributes come to the fore." The Orcs were slowed by the devastating barrage. Dionys shifted his aim towards the line of barrels the scouts had just left behind. Explosive rounds punctured the barrels of Promethium, engulfing an entire rank of Orc warriors in flaming fuel. Orcs screamed in pain and fury as the searing heat turned skin and bone to ash. Dionys continued to pour fire into the enemy. His brothers emerged from behind their barricade to pick off more of the burning Orcs with precise shots from their sniper rifles. Still more Orcs charged through the searing clouds of Promethium. Crashing into Dionys' heavy bolter finally ran dry. The scout disappeared under an avalanche of enraged Orcs. Archelos felt fury take hold inside him. Tumbling his chainsword to life, he signalled the counterattack. "By the blood of Sanguinius, forward!" he cried out, chainsword held high. As he led the charge, sniper fire rang out from the walkways above. Archelos smiles, reinforcement had arrived. Now it was time to make the foul Orcs pay. Okay, so that's it. I'm not going to go through all this stuff. And yeah, we've already been through these. So I guess that's it for today. So if you do want more of this in-depth stuff at the end, I will absolutely do it if it's well received. If you don't need it and you're not interested, please let me know and I won't bother. But thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's pretty good. We've got some stuff that we haven't had before. It might not be sexy miniatures, but it sure is something. So yeah, I will be back next week, so don't forget, next 2 issues will be part of a competition, but we'll get into that next week. See you later.